be critical and analytical and not emotional when you're listening to information, so that you can really see or try to find out what the truth is as much as possible. And so if you've got somebody who isn't willing to do that, if you've got somebody who has a closed mind and they're not willing to just consider that other people might have difference of opinions, or there might be an actual a better way, then really there's nothing you can do. That's why when you take an argument that's well known, that's been around for a long time, and you're writing about it and you just give me the same old argument, my question is, well, why do you think this is going to convince your audience now when it's not convinced them in the last 20, 30 years? They know these things. You've not told them anything different. You've not put it in a different context that might help them rethink it. And so that's why you want to try to stay away from those old, tired subjects. Even though they're still controversial, there's still things we argue. It doesn't help you. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't get a passing grade for a paper, but you're not going to get the best grade if all you're doing is telling me things that are pretty much common knowledge. By the way, just on talking about topics, you're going to be picking your research topic pretty early, because then most of the semester you're going to be writing papers that help you develop your argument. And for this assignment, and again, I think you can see the argumentative essay unit in Brightspace. You can read about it. You have to either argue that something is a problem, or you have to argue for a solution to a problem that your reader recognizes. So again, sometimes we see things, right? We see, right, like this one right here. Research helps us shed light on problems that have not yet come out in the open. So this would be a case of the first type of paper you could write. You're trying to convince people that a problem exists. The second type of paper you could write then is, again, just arguing, well, how can we solve a problem? But realize that problem does not mean controversy. Argumentation does not mean controversy. Definitely controversial topics are included in argumentative papers, but you might argue for something that people disagree about, but it's not like we're not, burning people's homes or, protesting against them because they have a different opinion. I would like you to shy away from those topics because, again, most of them are so full of propaganda from both sides that it's very difficult to find the truth sometimes. And if you're not an experienced researcher, you will be vulnerable to using sources that actually don't have credibility. They might sound good, but they're not good. Whereas if you pick a topic that's not necessarily that well known and is just something we disagree about, that could be something, actually, one of my favorite topics is whether the burrito is a sandwich or not. That's actually a real debate that, people argue because some states classify how much tax or whatever is put on something based on the category of food. So if it's a wrap versus a sandwich. And so this started off in, I think, New York, and this guy had rented a store in a kind of a shopping mall, and he had a sandwich shop, and he made a deal with the landlord that he could not rent another store that sold sandwiches while this guy had his store there, and that was part of his agreement. Well, a Mexican shop opens up, they're selling burritos, and I guess they start doing really well, so the guy sues the landlord saying, you violated our contract. But the landlord is saying, well, the burrito isn't a sandwich, right? And they take it to court. And this has happened in several states. And some courts say, yes, the burrito is a sandwich. And some say, no, it's not, right? Same thing with a hot dog. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Is a hamburger a sandwich, right? And if so, would a taco be a sandwich? So it seems really kind of silly, but actually you could do research about, how we classify things and write a paper defending it. There is no right or wrong answer to this, right? A lot of times it all just really comes down to, well, we can have different opinions here and I can try to convince you why I think this is the right answer, but it doesn't mean that it's the only answer, right? So those are the things to think about. Think outside of the box. Think about something that's not that well known, or, a topic that isn't like marijuana and abortion and prayer in school and guns and stuff like that, right? That just does you better to try to find something a little bit off the beaten track. 10, focuses your scope. So again, this is going to be helpful. The second essay we do on the exploring topics is to help you focus your scope. So one of the challenges we have is that when you start researching, you may have a general topic that you want to write about, but it is too broad for the paper. You have to figure out how to narrow it. And so researching can help us find that niche that we can talk about, right? And so again, it can be overwhelming when you first start, depending on how narrow or focused you actually start with. But again, research can help us find a topic. That's why I think it's so important that you get started thinking about your paper as early as possible, because as you go throughout your day, if you're already started thinking about it, you're going to start somehow connecting things with it. You'll hear something on the radio and you're like, oh, wow, that's interesting. That would kind of be like what I'm thinking about, right? Or I could use that. Or you will have an epiphany, right? Something will trigger an idea and you'll figure out how you want to start your paper, right? So again, research gets you in that mindset. It can show you options and help you narrow it down to something that's going to work. It teaches discernment. Discernment is just judgment. So the more research you have means that you are taking in more information. You're becoming somebody that, can sift out bad information from good information. And again, like it says here, the gray areas where like there is no right or wrong.